So it makes it a lot easier for a seller to start, okay, I can relax, I don't have to deal with toilets and tenants, so it can definitely help both parties, because starting out, it's hard to get into the game when, you don't have capital or you've never done a deal. It can be kind of scary, but, by doing this type of deal, you get in with very little money out of pocket.
You could also do subject to. Were you gonna touch on that?
No, so I don't know much about, I've never
Okay.
done one, so. that's all
As
you.
Josh had mentioned earlier, like maybe 50% equity in the property, they may still have a mortgage on the property. Maybe they're willing to take the second position for their equity, and you can take over their mortgage. Either you can have that, most banks will not assign the mortgage, but if they're getting the payment, they're not gonna hunt you down, tell you, we're foreclosing on the property. So you could just take over those payments for the seller and keep making that bank payment for them. That way it doesn't hurt their credit. Plus you're also making a payment to them for the 50% equity that they have in their home. That's called subject to the existing mortgage.
So in case anyone doesn't know what equity is, so basically equity is the amount of value that they own in the property. So if the property is worth 100,000 and they owe 50, they have 50% equity because 50% of it is not leveraged by that property. So it's critical when you're doing this type of deal that they do have equity in the property. Otherwise, you're going to buy an asset that you don't want to buy something and be underwater from day one. I mean, that's you're going backwards if that's what you're doing. So I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, how do I go about this? The major thing that you need to do is marketing. I mean, the business is lead generation. If you can find people who are motivated to sell their house, you can do deals. And this often isn't a solution for a lot of sellers. A lot of times they'll need the cash for whatever reason. They have to pay the taxes, or they have to do, pay a mortgage off, they're getting foreclosed on. There's a lot of different situations that we deal with as real estate investors. So what I do when I'm meeting with a seller, and this is it's an amazing tactic that works very well, and I use it almost every day, is when I'm meeting with a seller, I'll write up 3 different offers. So I'll use one offer that's a cash offer, and then the second and basically I'll explain the amounts, but I'll do a cash offer one, I'll do partial seller financing for the second offer, and then I'll do full seller financing on the third. So a lot of times they'll still have a mortgage, so 100% seller financing isn't an option. But what I'll do is say the property, it has a value of 100,000. I'll offer 60,000 cash, but then I'll offer 80,000 partially seller financed and 90,000 100% seller financed. So the reason that you do that is because then it gives them the choice, to choose which one is going to be the best for their situation. Because if you have to outlay the cash, you need to get the best deal you can. But if they are, willing to have better terms, then it allows you to get in, with the no and low money down, which is ideal from an investment standpoint, because the more money that you can conserve, the more properties you can buy at a single time. Yeah.
Well, what if the seller has mortgage to a bank?
It depends on the amount of the mortgage. So if they have enough equity in the property, you can still structure this type of deal. So if you're doing partial seller financing, so say they owe 50,000, the property's worth 100, you agree on, I don't know, 65,000 or 80,000. Let's use that because it's an easy number. So you can get a loan for 80% of that property from a traditional bank, right? And then you have the seller carry a second mortgage for your down payment. So you say, okay, Mr. Seller, you're gonna finance my $15,000 down on the property. I'm gonna make monthly payments to you, and I'm gonna make monthly payments to the bank. So, they're clear of the property except for that mortgage that you're making payments to them every month. And that could be a way that, they can unlock some equity that they might have in the property and get some cash now, but then they also continue to get that cash for the next, however long you decide, 3 years, 5 years. And if you're doing, if this is like a investment property with, 2, 3, 4 units, you can refinance that property within a year after you increase the rents and you decrease your expenses. The value goes up on that property, so you can refinance shortly after. Now that I've done some of these deals, another thing that you can use in your tool belt is I have sellers write me a letter of recommendation about their experience working with me. So literally, when I go into a meeting with the seller, I've got my 3 offers. I have a letter of recommendation from someone who has done this type of deal with me before that vouches for, hey, he makes his payments on time, sometimes early, he's never missed a payment, et cetera, so that the seller feels comfortable saying, because they don't know me and they're lending me $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, however much it is. So you need to do everything that you can to build credibility. So that letter of recommendation makes a huge difference.